Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
What do Fox News and the Gong Show have in common?
I know you're not the fan of Airplane that I am, but in both movies, the main character continues to tell his love story to different characters that are sitting next to him on the plane. One is an elderly woman who eventually vomits. Another hangs himself. Another one pours gasoline all over their head to set them on fire. Watching that debate last night called to mind the movie Airplane. That was painful. I wanted my 2 hours back.
Listen, I would go root canal or a beating from the nuns before I'd watch another one. It was absolutely...
Perhaps the Joe Vigism is the best summary of the headline summary. They insulted me and they embarrassed themselves. Maybe I'll throw in, with the exception of Christie, and I'll explain why later.
There is so much to talk about on this, but here's my problem. It's actually, for me, it's now become a moral dilemma. I actually found something this morning that I agreed with in the New York Times. The New York Times described the second presidential debate as the Gong Show. And it's because before I read the headline, I woke up thinking about what I had just witnessed the night before, which I think is basically cruel and unusual punishment. And it's virtually unconstitutional. I mean, it's against the spirit of the human being, what we just saw. But the big culprit to me, the biggest culprit, without any doubt, is Fox.
Yes.
And I started to break down the pieces and the component parts of what they did and how they did it. And Michael, my outrage is not for a candidate, against a candidate. My outrage, and I mean this, I am as done as you can be. My outrage is with the people who run Fox News. And I mean, let's just start with the people that they picked to moderate again.
The diversity of accents?
Well, that's fine. The reality is what they did was they did everything in their power to create the condescending arrogance of gotcha questions. They literally interviewed these people as if they were the power, as if they had all the answers, as if they were the superior knowledge in the room, the moral authority in the room. And then all they did was talk down their nose, bait, trap, and condescend to these candidates the entire time. And all of their questions, all of their setups, all of the stuff, it was bizarre. So the questions and the people in charge, and this has been a consistent pattern in Fox going back years.
I warned you that the death of journalism is not a victory for the right and or the left. It's a defeat for America. Last night, that was on full display. This is why I don't watch Fox. It was a disgrace to Roger Ailes, and he's a disgraced character in broadcast history. I said to you, had I been napping for 10 years and I just woke up, sure, I'd be saying, what happened to America? Sure, I'd be saying, what happened to the Republican Party? But ultimately, I'd be scratching my head saying, what the heck happened to Fox News? I mean, it's like Mad Magazine. Is there a picture at the end of this thing that we can fold, Dana Perino and Sean Hannity, and it forms an empty suit? I mean, it was just awful. And that is very consistent from the first debate. It's because they care about themselves, not us, the voters. And I'm sorry, but many of the candidates fell for that as well.
Well, and let's just take a second and we'll back up the train a little because we got some time and this conversation is going to take multiple cups of coffee. I can feel it. Let's just talk about the entire construct. We're at the Reagan Library. Now, have you been to the Reagan Library?
No, I have not been in person.
Okay. All right. I've not only been there, I got thrown out.
Oh, now that's an interruption. We gotta hear that story.
Yeah, I've not only been there, but I actually got thrown out. I was there with Wayne Shepard several years ago, and we had introduced ourselves at the front desk, and we had said that we were going to be, we're going to be sitting out on the back porch, which we didn't have to do, but that we would have an open microphone on our phones because we wanted to just reflect upon the beauty of the place, and we do a radio program. We wanted to just sort of get a moment of, that's all. We also were out there, and the next thing you know, security comes out and says, excuse me, there's no recording without prior authorization here at the library. So we're just, talking about how we feel about this place. It's beautiful. No, I'm sorry, that can't be done. So we went back in and said, okay, now, in the spirit of Ronald Reagan, we are not about to stand for this nonsense. I mean, there's his tomb right there. Okay, I'm not buying that crap. So we went in and we had some lengthy and actually quite friendly conversations with the people that were running it. We went back out. We did what we were going to do anyhow, and it all worked out just fine. But they were going to throw us out.
Well, I got thrown out of the book depository in Dallas. I walked in and there was all these metal detectors. I said, "Where were these 45 years ago?" And they didn't find that funny. But we digress.
For the record, Michael and I can get thrown out of amazing historical cases just because at any time. So we did do it. It is a beautiful place. It is a powerful testimony of a period of time and of a person of leadership who came forward, not a perfect person under any stretch of the imagination, but someone who led with the character.
Didn't boss, led.
And the class, and who led, but who had conviction. This is probably the last time we've had a president that actually understood the concept of worldview from a truly American point of view. He was the leader in regards to worldview. He had spent so many years traveling the country doing radio programs and doing regular radio programs on the American spirit that he understood what it was. And so this is what this library is all about. So we are there, and we got to watch the Gong show at the Reagan Library. That in and of itself was outrageous. You would have thought that Fox News would have had some sense of decorum. They started with a Brit Hume piece that seemed like it was going that way. But then I got nervous because did you see the freakazoid way in which they introduced the candidates like we were watching Fox football?
Hunger Games. So yeah.
Did you get the head fakes and the eye rolls and all that stuff? Okay, that was Mad Magazine. That was I thought it was in an SNL skit.
Well, how about this? This will make your point the best, I think, in that the most important relevant question from a reality standpoint was the last. If you all stay in this race, Donald Trump is going to get the nomination. That is a mathematical certainty. So the most serious, relevant question they turned into reality show. Now vote somebody off the island. And now the candidates, that's the only one they didn't fall for.
Now, I just went from the beginning. You went right to the end.
And all in between. Okay. I mean, Fox was the big loser.
Since we're there, we've got to break that thing out, and we've got to talk about that, what Dana Perino did. What Dana Perino did was the most unconscionable thing I've ever seen a journalist do in that moment of authority that she had. By asking those people to literally write a name and on a card who you want off the island and turn it over so we can all see.
Pre-planned with a pad to do it.
Okay. That was despicable. Whoever was responsible for that decision should be fired. Dana Perino should be fired. Not even negotiable. You remove those people, and the Republican Party should never participate ever again with a debate that has anything to do with Fox News. This was reprehensible. It was non-negotiably wrong at every level, and there is no recovery for Fox News on this. None, zero. I'm telling you, it was at that level. You're looking. All right. Okay. So that's what you did. Now they all said no, but then Stuart Varney doubled down.
But Christie
doubled down.
Christie took that serve and put it right in his face.
Well, and he said, Mr. Christie, Governor Christie, I saw you writing something down on your paper. And all of a sudden he's this judge. What did you write on your paper? What did you write on your paper?
Gotcha moment. Yeah.
Yeah, there it was.
Or was it a setup? I mean, I don't want to, use conjecture or conspiracy, but if it wasn't, and that was the big gotcha moment, clearly Christie had the right response. Because Christie throughout the night was consistent on two goals. One, we always talk about lanes. He occupies the most open lane. He's not another Trump without being Trump. He's going after the big lane. He did that consistently. And smoking Trump out of hiding was clearly the goal. And like a dog with a bone, he kept after it. And consistently throughout being the only adult and big boy in the room. I cut to the chase, think Christie was the big winner. And turning that moment on Trump, it played right in to what I think Christie's goals were for the evening. And that's why I think he's one of the big winners. But I think Trump is also the biggest winner for just not being a part of this clown show.
She walks through the corn leading down to the river. Her hair shone like gold in the hot morning sun. She took all the love that the poor boy could give her, then left me to die like a fox on the run. Like a fox, like a fox, like a fox, like a fox on the run. Now everybody knows the reason for the fall, when woman tempted man down in Paradise's hall. That woman tempted me and took me for a ride. Now like a weary fox, I need a place to hide. She walks through the corn leading down to the river. Her hair shone like gold in the hot morning sun. She took all the love that the poor boy could give her, then left me to die like a fox on the run. Like a fox, like a fox, like a fox.
So the big question is, did this debate help voters? As a voter, it didn't do anything really to help me make my choice. Does it move any candidates in any needles? I'm not so certain it does. But if we kind of break down performances in debates, you're looking for a big gaffe and you're looking for a big moment. I don't know that anybody had a big moment. Christie's Donald Duck is in no way turning to, well, there you go again, or something that might be a game changer. So I don't think there was any game changers. But let's just, from a perspective of performance, kind of take them through. I had the line on Pence, which was, he is consistently a 33 record and a 45 record jukebox. I mean, Pence, just 2 bad debates in a row. It's just not resonating, I don't think.
Michael, this is where it gets difficult, because watching this, taking notes as I was watching it, there was not one person there who didn't lose for being
right. That's why I say Trump's the big winner.
And nor is there anyone who watched it that isn't dumber for having done so. And what is really dangerous, and I'm not a Republican, what is really dangerous is that the Republican Party does not understand how much they damaged themselves last night. They may have lost the general election last night. Their performances were so disgusting, so juvenile, so out of control, that the footage from that debate could be used against them no matter who they run as a candidate. They're an embarrassment, and they all fell for it. Not one of them was able to survive in that environment without being corrupted by what actually happened. It was an absolute disaster. What they did was there's.
I couldn't agree more, but I can't throw Christie into that crowd.
Oh, no, Christie. No, I think Christie. Maybe if anyone survived the singe at all, but I think Christie's comment on Donald Duck was a disaster.
Well, yeah, it fell flat.
So he failed. He failed along with everybody else. You only have to fail once in an environment like that, and he failed huge. They're all gone. They're all done. Now, not to say that none of them could become the nominee, right? But it's just, I think they lost the general election last night. That's how bad this was.
You could not convince me that there was anyone on that stage that's going to be the next president of the United States. So that's a disaster for all of them. Because isn't that the ultimate simple goal? Convince me you're it.
I think anyone who appeared on that stage disqualified themselves for being president because they'd be too stupid to not understand that they shouldn't have been there.
I think what
this is a disaster.
Makes them fall into the trap is, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. They're all about themselves. They can't stay focused on their part. I mean, I think Ramaswamy is definitely playing for the youth crowd. But he's not doing it Barack Obama style. There's not going to be no Ramaswamy revolution. So that's not going to move the needle. He was trying to noticeably be the uniter, constantly complimenting everybody else as they focused on him. I mean, I think one takeaway.
But that's nothing. He's an absolute passive aggressive monster.
I get that. But my point is, it's clear that the panel was focused on hurting Ramaswamy and going after Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley. They weren't focused on fixing this country for me and my family. That's what ultimately was revealed.
When you say the panel, are we talking about all the candidates?
Yeah, all the candidates.
Okay, so all the candidates they had a strategy.
I mean, if they were focused on me, if they were focused on our republic, if they were focused on our economy, if they were focused on their party, they wouldn't have fell for any of these traps or displayed such a madness and clown show, all talking at once and attacking. But I mean, if you want to go back to up to 30,000 feet and look down, clearly they were looking at the polls. And if you want to know who the candidates fear right now, it's Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley. And I think Christie just took the open lane and free road and rose above the cloud of smoke. But that's Christie was focused on Trump. They were all focused on Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley. And I thought it was ineffective for the party, ineffective for the country. And it didn't give me a lot of trust that they're going to step in and solve this mess for me and my family in their future.
No, again, I regret to say this. I think that last night the Republican Party lost the presidential election of 2024 because they proved that they do not have a single person in their profile of candidates that is capable of actually being a leader, is capable of having a civil conversation, is capable of avoiding taking the bait of what the clown show or the Gong show of Fox News threw. I mean, of all people, the last person I ever would have expected to rise up and attack Nikki Haley over the curtains in her office was Tim Scott.
Well, and boy did he miss it on that textbook issue with race on slavery too. He lost it for me forever with that one.
Yeah, and well then, so because people may or may not remember,
we interviewed him.
as you and I talk about it. We've actually had Dr. William B. Allen with us in these conversations at 1850 Main Street, and he was basically the chairman of the effort on the educational reform standards in Florida, and he is a descendant of slaves. And when Ron DeSantis said, "Look, this whole thing was a fraud. The whole attack on these standards from the perspective of slavery was fraudulent. It wasn't the right thing to do at all." And then he went on to try to explain it. Tim Scott was heard saying, "Drop the sentence, drop the sentence, drop the sentence." In other words, Tim Scott was saying, "I'll take the bait to appease people, even though no one's thought through what was actually said." And if you think through what was said and you look at it in context, then in essence, what you've got is something that's really worth talking about. And that's the entire idea of having these educational standards, is what we can learn. Well, of course, Tim Scott, he threw Haley under the bus. He threw William B. Allen under the bus. He threw DeSantis under the bus. And this was the guy who presented himself as saying, above all thing else in these debates, I'm going to maintain my integrity and my decorum. And not only did he show that he doesn't have any clue where he is and how to function even in the Gong Show environment, but then, I mean, he showed what was in his heart.
Yeah, well, I think desperation. I mean, the guy is stuck at 2% and he can't move the dial. He had to try something differently. But, there's something very immoral when you're not true to yourself. Out of everybody, Tim Scott failed himself last night. Many of the others failed their party, failed their republic, failed their constituents and their voters that are watching. Tim Scott failed himself. That's a pretty deep wound.
And what's really sad about that is
most didn't catch it, though, I will admit.
We're good, and we've got a lot more to talk about here. But what's really sad about this is just the very comments that we're making right now prove once again the New York Times was right.
The Gong Show.
This was the Gong Show. What did you watch the Gong Show for? You watched the Gong Show to see how people would embarrass themselves seeking a meaningless prize because they were actually after fame, fortune, and recognition. Or fame and recognition, or whatever the prize was. That was what the Gong Show was all about. And that is exactly what we saw last night. People losing their minds, following immoral leadership from the panel of Fox people, participating in an environment and an atmosphere that had no chance of doing anything but diminishing all of them, no chance of doing anything but embarrassing themselves and insulting all the rest of us. And they fell for it.
Yeah, and you made the ultimate statement, which is they may have lost the general election with that last night. I think what is true is their goal is to move the dial forward, that there's a failed presidency, there's a failed economy, there's a failed border, there's failed foreign policy for our time, for all time. These things must be redirected and corrected. They didn't do a good job of making that case at all. I doubt any of them, with the exception of Christie. Christie may be the only one that bumps 2 or 3 points. I will say this about DeSantis. This is now consistent in 2 performances of debates. He starts out awful. He closes stronger. The problem is, I don't think there's many people like you and I that could have survived more than an hour of that debate. It was that bad. So people aren't around. They're not watching in general, and then they're not, because it's a year and a half early. and then they're not around for when he starts performing well. So did anybody move the dial? Because that's the goal of this, right? It didn't move any dials for me. I don't feel like any of those people, if you held a gun to my head, I'd say put Christie in the Oval Office. But it didn't move that. I think maybe Christie bumps up 2 or 3 points from this. Everyone else is unchanged. Therefore, clear path for Donald Trump, clear path for Soros and Podesta.
Well, I want to talk about what the other side was doing, and I want to have a conversation of putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes. But before we go there, I texted you something that I don't want to repeat because I needed to repent of the thought because it regarded Dana Perino. When Ron DeSantis correctly recited his role of serving his country and coming back and repeated that, she spoke over what he said when he talked about the fact he was the only person there who had been in active service in duty under fire. Dana Perino had the audacity to speak over that and try to one-up him on that and basically say, well, Nikki Haley's husband is in service right now. I was stunned. I was shocked. It was a moment which I thought to myself, could you be any more pronouncedly attempting to diminish a human being and diminish us all? How could she ever have said that? But she did. She said it out loud. Now, I got to tell you something. I didn't think that DeSantis was out of order to repeat that. I don't think he was bragging on himself. I think he was telling one of those, again, kind of embarrassing stories when these people try to give themselves credit. But you know what? When she did that, I thought, this is nuts. I've never heard a journalist ever.
They're not journalists, and they weren't moderators. Yeah. That's the problem. It was a fraud from the start.
This conversation isn't over yet, so come on back next time and pull up a chair at 1850 Main Street. To help spread the word, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. We'll see you soon.